Alright guys, sorry about that. My phone decided that that was all it wanted to record, so we'll get back to where we were at. Get back to this Christmas time call here. PTSD ain't all about the trauma and that you see. It's also medical calls. I don't know why I did it, but a couple days before Christmas we just had a bad medical call, and when I was walking out the front door of that house, I just turned around and there were some children standing by a Christmas tree, and I'll just never forget the look in their eyes and the sounds of them grieving, and just wondering why we couldn't bring back that family member of theirs, and just really stuck with me. It's hard to see Christmas time, and then definitely just having those children standing around that tree just grieving, and children and wives grieving, just the sounds and the sights. It's nothing like it, and it's definitely always bothered me. Talk about a fatal ATV incident. This was a pretty bad one. One of the survivors on that ATV was a younger person, and the person he was riding with did not survive, and again, for some reason, that little boy just locked eyes with me, and 10 years or so down the road, he was not little anymore. He was grown, and we met again. Just a hard one that really stuck with me. We'll talk about a few more calls before we get into this presentation a little further. Again, another very early morning. I tell you, the early mornings are hard on us. It just seems like when that angel just swoops down and starts taking people. There was so much destruction, and it's another call that I was first on scene with. It was close to my home, and I dug through the wreckage and through all the underbrush, shined my flashlight in the vehicle. Just noticed that was somebody very dear to me. And that face was definitely one face that took a lot of therapy to get things right again. There are a couple more medical calls, including individuals I was very close to. Us as volunteers, we're taking care of our home, we're taking care of our family, we're taking care of our friends. And usually when we're taking care of them, the resources are limited. The helping hands are limited. it takes a toll on you. I remember a fatal property maintenance incident. Definitely a time that I felt real hopeless. This person just wasn't in reach. And we had to wait for the team to come in and get him to where we could reach him. Had another rough Christmas time incident. I'll tell you the worst thing about this was once we recovered the body, there were some guys that didn't run calls anymore after that. I was a line officer at the time. I just felt a lot of guilt and shame. I let people down that, they saw something so rough that was, that was their last call. And, we didn't have anything set up like what we're talking about right now. Another big driving force behind doing this presentation, I just wish I knew what I knew now at that time, just to talk to them. Very tragic incident involving one of our own. Just can't talk detail on that one, but very rough night. Some more fatal motor vehicle accidents, and then kind of the straw that broke the camel's back here was an incident involving a childbearing mother. That was my emotional barrier. Of course, I didn't know what an emotional barrier was until I went to therapy, but years and years went by until I reached this point. I can't tell you how many years I was just numb and this stuff didn't bother me. Then eventually it just crashed down on me. So we're going to talk a little bit more about these emotional barriers. The good thing about emotional barriers is through faith and professional help, we can break these things down and rebuild them, creating a nice, strong, and healthy, long-lasting career. The bad thing is we can do what I did. I just let time go on and on, suffering in silence, until that incident there was the last thing that I could see. That's when my mind the switch came on, and everything I've seen over 16 to age 29 or 30 just crashed on me like a bomb, or sometimes I use the word tidal wave. Really puts you in a bad, bad spot. When this happens, of course, it's not controlled. And this stuff really crashes down on you. This is why it's so important that for early intervention. Because if you take it to the point of the tidal wave or the bomb like I did, you may very well leave your questioning your own life. I noticed my passion was starting to turn on me. The things I first can remember is my mind began to think on the calls more often. I began to live in them like they were happening in present time, but the screen was fuzzy. I remember the feeling of losing control, the situations I was good at handling, got so much praise of handling, felt so honored to we're now producing anxiety and flashbacks. That was rough. I remember wanting certain order and things, just since I was losing control of my mind. I'll give you one example of this. This is why it's so important that we have to listen to our peers and really soak into what they say. I don't know if you ever received that phone call late at night or early in the morning. Somebody giving you a big ration about maybe the fire truck won't park right or cleaned right or the jump bag won't ride in the ambulance. Just something silly, something stupid. But they are just extremely upset about it. I've received these phone calls. I've given these phone calls. When something like that happens, just that level of being irrational, you really need to say, hey, this ain't about the fire truck. This ain't about the jump bag. What's really bothering you right now? Is it a call? Is it something in life? And let's talk through this. Don't get all mad and wait till that next business meeting to flatten their tires or something. When people get upset about these little things, it's because something big's going on in their mind, and we need to talk about it. So my breaking point, we all have situational awareness. At least I hope you do anyway. That'd be a whole nother topic. But it started turning, that was something that I could, tones go off, I could cut it on, go to the call, make things happen, get the fire truck or the ambulance back in the bay, and I could cut it off. It was part of the job. But eventually it turned into hypervigilance. That's that kind of worst case scenario thinking. Something really bad's going to happen, or somebody's going to die. And then eventually it'll lead to paranoia. You ever run across that person that thinks somebody's going to get them, or just thinks that, everybody's going to die? It's just a bad state when your mind gets to that point. Once you reach that paranoia level, you can become very revengeful. People with PTSD do seem to have trust issues. So definitely during that state of paranoia, you'll be seeing a lot of trust issues. I didn't go too deep into those calls, but we hit the highlights of them. My breaking point, those calls were hitting me daily, 10 to 12 of them. Go to work, driving to work, at work, running calls, whatever trigger came around and triggered it, they were just on my mind. Couldn't stop them. Just so vivid. It's not a loud cry. Doesn't really have any sounds to it. That's why they call it suffered in silence. Just tears will just run down your cheeks. It's reliving a few of those long nights in the emergency department. Living and breathing all the feelings and behaviors we're about to discuss and what we need to look out for. At this time, all those faces that I used to see in those flashing lights, screams, the smells, the sounds, you name it, it was in my nightmares, and I just began to drink. I began to drink because I wanted to sleep. It's a bad place to be when you start drinking just because you want to sleep. But then my desire to sleep turned into being scared and even thinking about going to sleep. Some of these guys will get hooked on meth and everything because they're just so afraid to go to sleep, so afraid to close their eyes. They don't know, what they're going to see. We're going to talk more about this impending doom and tremors here shortly. And it says right there, thoughts one should not have. when you go through this stuff, it really leaves you questioning your life and your options, and you just feel so alone because nobody talks about it. That was one of my biggest driving factors of not telling anybody, because I thought I was just the only one that was damaged or broken or weak. That's all the stuff that goes through your head. 2014 or so, just went into a deep stage of depression, just avoided and isolated myself from any friends, family, fire stations. Was an ER nurse for 5 years. Avoided the hospital, you name it. I just was like living in a cage almost, just trying to avoid everybody. If I saw you out and about, I'd just, would just scurry off to a corner somewhere where you wouldn't see me. And the reason why that was is just because when I saw my friends or my co-workers, they were triggers for me. When I saw their faces, I went right back to running those calls. It's rough stuff. So we're going to talk about some of the thoughts and feelings. This is more for the people that are suffering. If you're not suffering and you're just trying to pick up on the early warning signs, this right here is going to be hard to pick up on, but this stuff after these slides it won't be. But for the ones suffering and watching this, and I'm just going to spill my heart and soul to you here. I mean, I had to go through a lot of therapy to bring out all these feelings and why I felt it, and just some serious stuff. So we'll talk about shame and guilt. Just felt like I let so many people down. Just felt shameful. I thought, I was all alone. Nobody talked to me about this. There was no training on it. There's nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing on this stuff. In the last 2 or 3 years, it's really starting to pick up in the paid world of things. This is my way of just using my story and just through faith and just letting God work, and it'll be a long time for what the paid people get for the volunteers get. So hopefully this presentation will hit a lot of computer screens and really help some people. I'll tell you one thing about shame. I had a buddy that means the world to me. Very respected. And he told me one night, we all knew your schedule. We knew when you were off. We always knew that y'all would be there if we needed you. And he was right. For years, me and my wife, I was the EMS guy. I can do fire, but fire is really not my thing. That ambulance is my baby. When I fell off the grid a couple years ago, I just felt so much shame that I just let so many people down. And when he told me that, it hurt me, but it was good. It's what I needed to hear. Just how true this stuff is. We talk about the self-doubt and questioning your judgment. That's the did I miss something? What could I have done better? That stuff that just eats you alive. What did I miss? What could I have done better? Man, that'll just play and play and play. This is a pretty big one too. When I said this during the presentation, there was just a big gasp out of the audience, but it needs to be said, because this does play through some people's minds. So, was that person really dead? That's a big one. Even you know that they are. You got the rhythm strip. You got it all. But your mind just wants them to be alive. And you question yourself, should I really still be doing this? Start questioning your career. Start questioning just who you are, pretty much. Within the shame and guilt and self-doubt, we're going to talk about these kid calls a little bit. Kid calls are the worst. I just want you to know, no matter what you did or what you thought you did, what you wanted to do, God already had that little baby's death, planned out. He knew what day that baby was coming to heaven. We can't be God. He makes the calls, he makes the shots. One of the biggest things about EMS is you sign up for it to save people's lives. And we do save people's lives. But a lot of things we do too is just being with people during those last moments. I know I felt it many times, and I'm pretty sure you have too. When people take their last breaths in your hands, and you can really feel the presence of the atmosphere. Things just change. You know that. Call it the angel of death or whatever. You just know that angel swooped down and took that person's soul or spirit up to heaven. That's hard. It's hard on us. But we just spend a lot of our time just being with people in their most vulnerable moments as they make their way to heaven. Let's talk about not being worthy. As things went on and I started having a family, I just really stopped enjoying life activities and family gatherings, and just felt like I didn't deserve those moments due to the guilt of not being able to bring back mom or dad or son or daughter to those other families. When I was out having fun, I would just think about some of the calls of just doing everything we could have possibly done to save that person's life. But we couldn't. It just weighed heavy on me. We'll talk about this. You're not safe, you're in danger, and you're permanently damaged. When your mind is trapped, what it feels like real-time calls. If you're watching this and you have PTSD, you know what I'm saying, real-time calls. These calls play like you're, I don't want to say a video game, but I mean, it's just amazing that these calls just play in your mind and you're just in them watching. I mean, calls from over 10 years ago. Everything is just so vivid. You can remember the color of the wall, what was on the TV, what book was on the end table. It's really just amazing how your mind can do that. But when you're trapped in all those calls, and we're going to talk more about reckless behaviors in a little bit, but when you're dealing with all the consequences of those reckless behaviors, I mean, they're just weighing heavy on you. You're not got any sleep. You're scared to go to sleep. The pending doom is upon you, which we're going to talk about too. You're feeling like you're all alone. You really think there's only one way out. All right. So this is for the guys and gals that are not suffering from PTSD. This is where you really need to open your ears here and get your eyes watching. Myself, I went from the most loving and caringest and calm and collective person you ever met. I mean, I was truly just one of the most easiest going, happiest people you ever met. And then I just became very edgy, very irritable. There's a handful of people that just saw me so angry. Another reason I just went into isolation too, this anger will leave you hurting people, I can tell you. This anger ain't no joke. Never had road rage issues before. But I can tell you when this stuff snapped off in my head, I had just some terrible road rage. So, you got your guy or your gal there, and